What is up, gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be looking at how you can handle and overcome confrontation on a day-to-day basis. We've all been there before. We've been in that scenario where for some reason we have a disagreement with someone, maybe over something trivial, maybe in the workplace, it may be with our family, it may be with our friends, it may be with a partner, and we almost feel flustered. We don't know how to communicate. We almost can't keep track of what is being said, and that situation that may have started very small, we can find getting away from us in a very large way. This is something that we will all face, and the ability to live a good life is going to be dictated by your ability to handle and overcome confrontation for the betterment of everyone involved. On today's episode, I want to give you guys my top and key tips the next time you face a confrontation. It's going to be very practical. Number one, which is the second you notice yourself in a quote unquote confrontation. And this is something you have to practice. This is not a remedy. This is not a cure. This is not a medicine. Even me at the age of almost 30, it's something that I'm always working on. I'm very diligent about knowing how I'm showing up in a quote unquote confrontation. But the first step is to take deep breaths. When you're confronted by anything, the first thing that your body is going to do is it's going to go into fight or flight response. No matter if your life is in danger or not, you're going to notice this sense of anxiousness. Your cortisol is going to shoot through the roof, and if you allow it to get away from you, you're going to find yourself in a situation where your heart rate is racing, your adrenaline is pumped, and the situation is going to be completely away from you. The way to counteract that is take some deep breaths. Control your breathing, be mindful about your breath, and oxygenate yourself. That ability to be conscious about how you're breathing in the moment, sure, as you're dealing with the situation, is going to allow you to be a lot more present and to stay grounded in that situation. Number two is to pause before you react. The ability to pause and to not be triggered by your impulses and to not be led by your impulses is the defining feature of overcoming confrontations. It is rare that our first reaction to anything is the right reaction. Our primal lizard human brain has two responses. It's either fight or flight. If we leave or if we flee, we avoid the confrontation altogether. And if we fight, we escalate altogether. Well, what if I was to tell you that there is a middle ground, and this comes between the stimulus and the response? When you feel something, take a step back, give yourself the time and the space that you need to evaluate the situation correctly, and then react accordingly. Number three is to maintain open body language, and I could not agree with this point more. Your body language and your physiology has a huge impact on how you show up and how your body and your mind connect to each other. One of the things that we tend to do when we feel confronted is we tend to close up. Our physiology slumps in on itself. We go into a state of retreat. That state of retreat creates and harbors emotions that are negative. It harbors a negative understanding of the situation. We feel helpless, we feel defeated, or if we clench our fists, we feel angry, we feel like we want to do something about it, or if we frown, or if we jeer, or whatever it is. Allowing yourself to maintain open, inviting body language, strong body language, not only projects your situation or your position in that specific scenario, but it also allows you to trick your mind into reacting in a way that is conductive and positive. Number four is to listen actively. And this is so difficult. I get it. We've all been there in a situation where no matter what is being said back at you, you're not listening. What you're doing is just you're waiting for your turn to speak. And I cannot stress how important it is to actually listen to what is being said. You could very well be wrong in that scenario, and it is more than fine to be wrong. I am even guilty of this, of hearing the things that I want to hear, and I work diligently at actually trying to hear what is being said in front of me. And it can be a blow to your ego. It can be the most difficult thing to do, to listen to someone as they're telling you that you've wronged them or you're doing something wrong, or that you are wrong in a specific scenario. It is not whether you're right or wrong. It's are we going to come out of this in a way, in a state of mind that is the best outcome for both of us? And if I'm wrong, then I will be wrong, and I am willing to acknowledge my wrongness and to learn from that. And if I'm right, I will listen to you, I will acknowledge what you've said, I will know what you've said deeply and internally, but I will give my feedback. I'll give my rebuttal. This is the difference. There's a difference between responding in a way where you're responding with zero context as to the other person's side, and there's another way, and a stronger way, and a more purposeful way of listening to what is being said, internalizing it, and then making your response based off of that. And if you do happen to change your mind and realize that you're wrong, it's more than fine. You are wrong. You can acknowledge that and move forward. You learn from it and you gain character skills. Number 5 is perspective. Always try to understand the other person's perspective. Even if this person has wronged you and you genuinely believe they've wronged you, everyone has a life that is their own. Thoughts, emotions, their upbringing, their inhibitions, all the things that make up this person is why this person is the way that this person is. The ability to understand someone. And there's a well-known quote that says, you cannot both understand someone and hate them at the same time. So try to understand someone. Look at their perspective. This is going to give you, and if anything, it's going to give you the tools necessary, if you need to assert yourself, to overcome their confrontation or overcome their objections in a way that's going to make sense for them. You cannot speak your own language to someone and expect them to be convinced. You need to truly internalize why they're making this decision, how they've come to this decision, and what their potential responses can be from how and where they see it. This is the power of perspective. Number 6 is to use I statements. The first thing most people tend to do is they say, you did this, you have done, you're being this, you're XYZ. The second you accuse someone, you don't achieve the effect of making them aware of what they've done. What you achieve the effect of is putting them in the defensive. And when you put someone and you back them up against the wall, either two things can happen. Either they lash back out at you and the situation confronts and it's escalated, or they completely close off and no one benefits from that. If you're trying to make a point, understand that your point is a perspective of your own. Use I statements. I statements are not accusatory, and you can get your point across showing that this is your point of view and your personal experience. And if there is merit in what you're being said, it's also going to be internalized. And if you've done and gone through the points before, you're also going to be projecting and saying these things in a way that the other person can understand. Next up is to stay focused at the issue at hand. This is so important. The natural state of affairs in a confrontation is to let your minds, or both of your minds, wander completely. It's very difficult to stay on track. And one argument turns into another, which turns into another, and all of a sudden you're talking about that one thing that happened 6 years ago on an obscure Sunday morning. This is not the way to go about it. When you're having a conversation about something, you must take and make the effort to stay on track with your conversation. Don't allow that one argument or that one confrontation to splinter off into thousands of different arguments, because you will never get to the end of it. Your ability to stay on track is your ability to achieve a resolution and for both parties to walk away happy and convinced. Number 8 is to seek common ground. A confrontation is not an opportunity for you to get one up on the person in front of you. In life, there are no winners and there are no losers, especially when it comes to human conflict. Everyone is a loser if your only goal is to get one up on someone else. What your goal should be is to achieve common ground. Even if someone has done you wrong, sometimes you just leave the situation altogether. But in general, you must find a resolution that works for both people. And this comes with active listening. This comes with understanding the other person's perspective. And this comes with waiting your turn to speak and communicating yourself in a way that is going to be understood by the other person and coming to a resolution that can be acceptable to both parties. And this is not easy. This is not something that you click your fingers and it happens. It requires a tremendous amount of patience. It requires you to have thick skin, and it requires you to truly want the best for yourself and for those around you. Number 9 is to keep your voice calm and keep it steady. This comes back to the first point, which is take a deep breath in. In a confrontation, we have the tendency to begin to raise our voices. As we raise our voices, the escalation or the conflict begins to escalate little by little by little. And eventually, as you raise your voice, the person in front of you raises their voice, so on and so forth. This continuous escalation is what creates a mountain out of a molehill. That's where that phrase comes from. Your ability to remain stoic, present, grounded, projects outwards through your voice. Your voice that's erratic and you're shouting and is achieving nothing. You believe you're projecting power and you're asserting dominance, but this is the furthest thing from the truth, because the only person that you're going to get one up over is someone that is also in a situation where They're on the opposite side of the spectrum. And if anyone is somewhere in the middle, they're not going to put up with that, and that's not going to achieve anything that is worthwhile for you. You may lose good people in your life, you may lose good teammates, you may lose good partners, you may lose good family members simply by your arrogance and your inability to control your emotions in the situation. Maintain a calm and steady voice and dictate the pace of the conversation. If you notice someone else getting flustered, don't allow yourself to be drawn into their emotions. I've been in that situation many times where my ability to remain calm, peaceful, and grounded has completely diffused the situation, and we walked away best friends. And I cannot tell you the amount of situations where this has happened. Number 10 is to ultimately know when to walk away from a given scenario. In an ideal scenario, we always achieve resolutions to the confrontations that we have in front of us. But sometimes, either you're in the wrong, or you're unable to understand, or the person is in the wrong and they're unable to understand, and we must know when to call it quits or when to walk away, to take a step back, to allow time and space to allow the confrontation to diffuse itself. Knowing when to walk away, even when you feel that you haven't achieved what you're looking to achieve from a specific argument or a specific conversation, is also a sign of maturity and strength. We must be able to put our ego aside, to put our arrogance aside, to fight and to live another day. This comes down to your ability to detach from a situation, to say, listen, I understand that you feel this way. I don't agree with you, but at this stage, I don't believe that we can find common ground. Let's get back to this when you can. And if that's not something you're willing to do, that's totally fine with me, but I definitely would like us to reconnect. So let's see each other when we can. That ability to keep the door open has put me in situations where I've never lost someone that I truly care about, because I know when to leave the door open and to do so in a way that is dignified, respectful, and actually makes the other person want to come back to you, right? If you end up in a situation where you're shouting, you're screaming, and whether it's a friend, whether it's a teammate, whatever it is, and you've ended that conversation on a bitter note, you are much less likely to come back to it at a later date, because there's egos involved, right? The person that has been shouted at does not feel like they want to be shouted at again, and from your side, you may feel, oh, why should I? This person wronged me. That's why I blew up on them. There's no winner in that scenario. Last but not least is to reflect on the situation. And this is a key point to any conflict resolution. In the heat of the moment, we can often see or we can miss the details that are so crucial to understanding the full picture. It's true that you can never truly 100% understand another person's point of view, but especially in the heat of the moment, it can be increasingly difficult to do so. So after a scenario has unfolded, take a moment, step back, reflect on the confrontation you've had, reflect on why you were triggered, reflect on your response to that, reflect on the other person's response to that. Analyze your ability to understand them, to respond to them, to internalize what they've said, and to achieve a resolution. Write about it, journal about it, reflect on it, meditate on it. All of these things will make you a more capable person, a person that is able to communicate more effectively, that is able to have better relationships, and is better able to move their goals forward in life and to have people follow them willingly and happily. This is the power of conflict resolution. Guys, don't take this lightly. And don't avoid conflict. Don't be the kind of person that is never willing to say what is on their mind because they're afraid of that stimulus. They're afraid of getting triggered. They're afraid of putting themselves in quote unquote harm's way. If you believe in something, stand up for yourself. No one's saying to be passive. Being a stoic does not mean to not care about anything at all. It means to be able to control yourself for the fact that you care about the situation around you, that you care about the well-being of those around you, and you want to put yourself in the best possible scenario that is as devoid of unnecessary emotion as you can, to move everyone forward. That's the power of conflict resolution. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to make it as technically and as feature-packed as possible. I want to keep these episodes quite practical and less esoteric. Let me know what other practical daily tips and tricks that you guys want to see on this channel. If you want to see me do more fashion content like I did in the beginning as well, let me know. Guys, I say this all the time, but from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Shadi TV. Until next week's episode, stay awesome.